Imagine spending like 5 agonizing years in a windowless lab. You've secured the funding, you've run the trials, you've finally analyzed all the data, and you are ready to publish this massive breakthrough.
Right, the dream scenario.
Yeah, exactly. But then someone casually points out that a team in Sweden published the exact same findings, like 8 years ago.
Oh, man, that is, it's every researcher's absolute worst nightmare.
Yeah.
And, I mean, unfortunately, it happens way more often than people think.
Which is exactly why you are here with us today. Your mission right now, for everyone listening, is mastering Lecture 3, Literature Review, from the basic course in biomedical research. We're going to make sure you are completely exam ready. And, more importantly, that you never become that researcher who wastes 5 years on a totally solved problem.
Exactly. I mean, we are looking at the core concepts of how you navigate this massive landscape of biomedical knowledge.
Yeah.
And the best way to master this isn't just to talk about it in the abstract, right?
Right, totally.
We need to see how these ideas are actually tested in the real world.
So here's our game plan for this deep dive. We have the actual multiple choice questions from your course material.
The real deal.
Yep. I am going to give you the specific question number, and I'll read the full question and all the options because, seeing the wrong options is just as instructive as finding the right one.
It really is.
Then we'll uncover the correct answer, which is usually the bold text in the source, and just rip into the actual mechanics of why it's right.
And a quick boundary check before we start.
Yeah.
We are strictly using the source material provided, like no guessing, no filling in gaps with outside information.
Right, no hallucinating facts here.
Never. We have 28 fully available questions today. So if you're following along, and notice we skipped question 21 and question 30, that is simply because they were cut off in the source text.
Totally. Okay, let's get right into it. Before we even open a database, we need to, justify the effort. Why do we even do this? Question 3 asks exactly that.
Okay, let's hear it.
It says, why should we need to do a literature review? Option A, save yourself from work. Option B, know the subject matter better. Option C, suggest new research topics, questions, and methods. Or option D, all of the above.
Right.
Now, I look at option A, save yourself from work, and my instinct is that sounds a bit lazy for a rigorous scientific process.
I mean, it does sound lazy, but the correct answer is indeed D, all of the above.
Why, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saving yourself from work is actually like the highest form of efficiency in science. It goes right back to your opening scenario. A literature review prevents you from reinventing the wheel.
Oh, I see.
But crucially, as option C points out, it also shows you the gaps. It reveals what we don't know, which, becomes the fuel for your new research.
Okay, so you're basically surveying the frontier to see where the map ends.
Exactly.
Let's look at how that applies to the actual structure of a research paper. Question 13 flips it around a bit. It says, all the following about literature review is correct, except T, and then A is, it identifies lacunae in the existing knowledge about a topic. Option B, it saves valuable time for a researcher.
Right.
Option C, it helps the researcher in arriving the conclusion of a study. And D, it suggests the researcher about new research topics.
So the exception here, like the one incorrect statement, is C. It helps the researcher in arriving the conclusion of a study.
Wait, I'm confused. Shouldn't my deep understanding of the literature, absolutely shape my conclusion?
Well, no. It shapes your premise, and, it shapes your hypothesis. But your conclusion must be an untainted reflection of the new, raw data you just collected.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if you let past literature drive your current conclusion, you're basically bringing a bias into your findings. You aren't doing new science, you're just echoing old science.
That makes a lot of sense.
And just a quick note on the terminology in option A, lacunae is just a traditional academic term for a gap.
Lacunae. Got it. Identifying the lacunae. I like that. It sounds much more sophisticated than just saying, stuff we don't know yet.
It really does.
So if the literature review doesn't belong in the conclusion, where does it actually go? Question 14 asks exactly that.
Okay.
While drafting a scientific manuscript, literature review is useful on the following section: except T, A, introduction, B, methods, C, results, D, discussion.
Connecting right back to our last point, the correct answer is C, results.
Because it's just raw data.
Exactly. The results section is quarantined.
Hmm.
It is a sacred space only for your new findings. You use the literature in the introduction to explain why you are doing this study.
Right.
And you use it in methods to say, hey, we are using this technique because Smith et al.
Yeah.
proved it works. You use it in the discussion to compare your new data against the old data.
But the results section itself.
Zero literature review allowed.
Quarantined. I love that. Now, how long does this whole process last? Question 17 poses a true or false.
Let's hear it.
Literature searches are important to do at the start of a project and do not need to continue throughout the project. A, true, B, false.
That is firmly B, false.
Because things keep getting published.
Right. The biomedical field doesn't hit pause just because you started an experiment. New studies are, published daily.
So you could be halfway through a study and get scooped.
Yeah, you might be 6 months into a year-long project and someone publishes a paper that completely reframes your methodology. You have to be monitoring the literature constantly.
Okay, let's formalize what we are actually doing then. Question 23 asks, literature review is a well-thought-out and organized search for all literature published on a particular topic in a library or online database. A, true, B, false.
And the answer there is A, true.
Just a straightforward definition then.
Yeah, the operative words there are well thought out and organized. It is a highly systematic process. It's not just randomly Googling terms until you feel like you have enough PDFs.
Okay, so we know why we are doing it. We know it's systematic. And we know it never really stops until the paper is published.
Right.
That brings us to a major conceptual hurdle in this material. Like the difference between seeking information and retrieving information. To me, those just sound like synonyms.
They do, but they are absolutely not synonyms in this context. They represent two completely different phases of the workflow.
Let's test that. Question 4. The process of scanning the literature efficiently using manual or computerized methods to identify a set of potentially useful articles and books is called as A, information seeking, B, critical appraisal, C, database management, or D, information retrieval.
The correct answer here is A, information seeking.
And question 22 reinforces its exact same phrasing. A researcher conducts a review of literature to identify a set of potentially useful articles and books related to their research topic. This process is known as A, indexing, B, critical appraisal, C, data management, D, information seeking.
And once again, the answer is D, information seeking.
So what's the clue there? The vital clue in both of those questions is the phrase, potentially useful. Seeking is the macro phase. You are casting a wide net.
You don't know exactly what you'll find.
Right. You were just scanning the horizon to see what exists in the general vicinity of your topic.
It's like walking into a massive library and just asking, where is the biology wing? You aren't asking for a specific book yet.
Exactly. You just want to stand in the right building.
So how does retrieval differ? Let's look at question 8.
Okay.
The process of identifying within a large document collection a subset of documents whose content is most relevant to users' need is called as A, information retrieval, B, information management, C, systematic review, D, narrative review.
Now the answer shifts to A, information retrieval.
Ah, because of the phrasing.
Right. We have moved from potentially useful to most relevant to a user's need.
Let's see, that applied to a real scenario. Question 26.
Go for it.
A researcher wants to study the effect of physical activity on reduction of systolic blood pressure among patients with hypertension. The researcher has identified a subset of document which are most relevant document collection. This process is known as...
Let me guess. A, information management, B, critical appraisal, C, information retrieval, D, literature organization.
Yep, you got it.
This is a textbook example of C, information retrieval.
Because they have a very specific goal.
Exactly. The researcher isn't just seeking general cardiology papers. They have an incredibly specific need. Physical activity, systolic blood pressure, hypertension, and they are extracting the exact subset of documents that match.
Okay, here is another practical example. Question 19. A researcher wants to assess effects of polyunsaturated fatty acids, PUFA, on diabetes prognosis. For this, the researcher searches related articles in PubMed and Google Scholar. This process is known as A, information retrieval, B, indexing, C, critical appraisal, D, data management.
The answer is A, information retrieval.
Because they are going into a structured system for exact matches.
Right, exact matches for PUFA and diabetes.
But wait, how does the system know what is relevant to my specific need? Like, question 9 touches on this. The query system in the information retrieval process of literature review is A, user-defined, B, provider-defined, C, conditional, D, not structured.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because I feel like today, with algorithms, the provider defines everything. Like a search engine guesses what I want before I finish typing.
That might be true for, commercial search engines trying to sell you shoes. But in scientific literature, the correct answer is strictly A, user-defined.
Really? So it doesn't guess?
No, the database is completely agnostic. It does not guess. It does not assume. The burden is entirely on you, the user, to define the exact parameters, keywords, and logical operators of your query.
So if you define it poorly...
You get poor retrieval.
Okay, so seeking is wandering the library to find the right section. Retrieval is walking up to the librarian, handing them a highly specific, user-defined mathematical formula of keywords and demanding the 5 exact books that match it.
Precisely. Which, naturally leads us to ask, where are we handing over this specific formula? Like, what are the tools we actually use?
Right, the databases. Let's knock out some foundational definitions first. Question 2 asks, a blank is a collection of articles, abstracts, scientific proceedings, books, citations, etc., that is organized so that it can easily be accessed while doing literature review. A, database, B, critical appraisal, C, hard disk, D, index. And question 27 is practically a clone of this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the organized collection of articles, abstracts, scientific proceedings, books, and citations used for the purpose of literature review is known as A, database, B, data management, C, critical appraisal, D, index.
Well, for both of those, the correct answer is A, database.
Even over hard disk.
Yeah, you might have a hard disk full of PDFs, but a hard disk doesn't inherently organize them for systematic access and retrieval. A database does.
Okay, so what counts as a valid database in this field? Question 16 asks, all the following are examples of databases except A, Medline, B, Embase, C, CineHL, D, Google Scholar, E, none of the above. Now, this format is incredibly tricky for an exam.
It really is a classic distractor question. The correct answer is E, none of the above.
Because they are all valid.
Exactly. What this means is that A, B, C, and D are all valid, recognized databases used in biomedical research. There is no exception listed among them.
Let's talk about the giant in the room, though. PubMed.
Yes.
Question 15 says, which of the following about PubMed is incorrect? A PubMed comprises more than 25 million citations for biomedical literature. B, citations may include links to full-text article from PubMed Central.
That's true.
C, PubMed is developed and maintained by the National Center for Biotechnology Information, NCBI, at the U.S. National Library of Medicine, NLM. Or D, PubMed is a paid service provider for searching of literature.
So if a system is hosting over 25 million citations, you'd think it costs a fortune.
Right. I have to assume D is true, and it's super expensive.
It is a logical assumption, but the incorrect statement is actually D. PubMed is a paid service provider for searching of literature.
Wait, it's free.
It is an incredible triumph of public science that PubMed is entirely, famously free. It is maintained by the U.S. National Library of Medicine, the NLM, and anyone in the world can use it to search without paying a dime.
That is genuinely amazing. But, managing 25 million records requires some serious organizational architecture. Which brings us to question 10.
Okay.
In the National Library of Medicine, NLM, MeSH means A, medical services heading, B, medical subject heading, C, medical subject helpline, D, medicine services helpline.
The correct expansion of the acronym is B, medical subject heading.
What does that actually do, practically speaking? Question 20 gets into the weeds here.
Let's hear it.
Which of the following about MIS is incorrect? A, MIS-H thesaurus is controlled vocabulary produced by the National Library of Medicine. B, it consists of sets of terms, naming descriptors, and a hierarchical structure that permits searching at various levels of specificity. C, it is used for indexing and searching of biomedical and health-related information. Or D, May is used for Embase database.
The incorrect statement is D. MAH is used for Embase database.
Why is that incorrect?
Because MASH is a proprietary, controlled vocabulary created specifically by and for the National Library of Medicine, which means it powers PubMed.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, Embase is a totally separate competing database run by a private publisher, Elsevier, and they use their own distinct vocabulary system called Emtray.
Okay, let's unpack controlled vocabulary for a second because it sounds honestly very Orwellian. My understanding is that it's essentially the ultimate hashtag system.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, for example, if I'm a researcher in New York, I might write a paper about a heart attack. A researcher in London might write about a myocardial infarction, and a researcher in Tokyo might call it cardiac arrest.
Exactly.
If I just search heart attack, I miss the other two brilliant papers.
Yeah, without controlled vocabulary, you are a victim of synonyms. But what the NLM does is have humans and algorithms read all three of those papers and assign them the exact same official MeSH term.
Oh, wow.
It standardizes the medical dialect. When you search using the Me-SH term, you retrieve all of them, regardless of the specific phrasing the original author chose to use.
That is incredibly powerful, but we still have to build the actual query, right? Like, how do we tell PubMed exactly what we want? We use Boolean operators, the math of words.
Yes, a math of words.
Question 5 starts us off. In the Boolean search strategy, AND tells that database that you want records that contain all the words you specify. A true, B false.
The answer is A, true.
So it forces both.
Yeah, if you search diabetes and exercise, the database throws out any paper that only mentions diabetes and any paper that only mentions exercise. It only retrieves papers containing both.
Let's see it in action. Question 24. Which of the following search query in PubMed will give relevant articles for the following question? What is the burden of gastroenteritis among children? A. Gastroenteritis ORR children. B. Gastroenteritis AND children. C. Gastroenteritis BUT children. D. Gastroenteritis not children.
You need papers discussing both elements together, so the correct answer is B, gastroenteritis AND children.
Okay, but what if I want to cast a wider net? Question 25 asks, which of the following Boolean operator will give the highest number of results when used between two given search terms? A AND, B not T, C OR, D AL.
The operator that yields the most results is CAR.
See, this trips people up constantly. Like, OR sounds like you are narrowing your choices down. Like being asked, do you want chicken or fish? You only get one.
Right.
Why does OR give you the most results?
Because in database logic, ORs is additive. It doesn't mean one or the other exclusively. It means give me everything that has this word plus give me everything that has this other word.
And question 29 explains exactly when you'd use it. For which of the following purpose is the Boolean operator OR commonly used in literature search? A connecting synonyms of one key concept. And we'll stop there because the other options were unfortunately cut off in the source.
Right. But A is the correct answer. Connecting synonyms of one key concept.
Okay.
If you want to make sure you don't miss anything, you might type cancer or neoplasm or tumor. The database will shovel every single paper containing any of those words right into your lap. It drastically widens the pool.
I picture it like ordering a pizza.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. If I tell you I want pepperoni A&D mushrooms, I am being very restrictive. I will reject a plain pepperoni pizza. It has to have both.
Right.
But if I say I will eat pepperoni or mushrooms or sausage, my options suddenly explode. I can eat almost anything on the menu.
That is a very appetizing way to think about it. And, it highlights how easily you can overwhelm yourself if you misuse OR.
So what if I want to actively filter something out? Question 18. Which of the following search queries should be used to find the articles on chest pain other than angina? A chest pain A&D angina, B chest pain or R angina, C chest pain not angina, D chest pain except angina.
You would use C, chest pain not angina.
So it just removes it.
Yeah, it's a surgical strike. It tells the database to pull all papers discussing chest pain. But if the word angina appears anywhere in the text, immediately discard it.
So Andy narrows it down to the overlap, or blows the doors wide open, and not subtracts entirely.
Exactly. Master those 3 words, and you master information retrieval.
All right, so let's say you've used your Me-SH terms, you've deployed your Boolean operators flawlessly, and you have retrieved 50 highly relevant papers.
Success.
Now you have to actually read them. Question 1 asks, the ability to apply the principles of analysis to identify those studies which are unbiased and valid is called as A, critical appraisal, B, information seeking, C, information management, D, systematic review.
The correct term is A, critical appraisal.
So it's not just reading.
No, you're not just reading to absorb, you're reading to interrogate.
All right.
You're looking for flaws, biases, and methodological weaknesses.
And question 11 just reinforces this directly. In literature review method of identifying studies which are unbiased and valid is known as critical appraisal. A, true, B, false.
Which is, of course, A, true.
How rigorous are we supposed to be when doing this, though? Question 7 asks, critical appraisal is done in an organized and systematic manner. A, true, B, false.
The answer is A, true. You don't just rely on a gut feeling about whether a paper is good.
Right.
You use standard checklists and strict criteria to evaluate things like sample sizes, control groups, and statistical significance.
But this judgment phase brings up some really thorny ethical issues. If I'm a junior researcher, who am I to tear apart a paper written by, a titan in the field?
It could be intimidating.
Question 6 gets into this. Which of the following is unethical while writing a literature review? A, the contents from the study should be presented honestly. B, the contents from the studies should not be distorted.
Okay.
C, it is not necessary to address the weakness of the study in a scholarly manner. D, sources should be accurately documented. I'm guessing the unethical part is letting them off the hook.
You're right. The unethical practice listed is C. It is not necessary to address the weakness of the study in the scholarly manner.
So you have to call them out.
It is absolutely necessary. If you review a piece of literature and realize their methodology is deeply flawed, but you choose not to mention it out of politeness or reverence for the author, you are committing an ethical breach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you are misleading your own readers about the strength of the evidence.
You have an obligation to the truth, not to the previous author's feelings, but there is a line you can't cross, right?
There is.
Question 28 says, which of the following does not satisfy the ethical principles in conducting a literature review? A, results of previous studies are presented without distortion. B, weaknesses of previous studies are highlighted. C, previous studies are accurately cited. D, reputation of study authors are questioned.
The behavior that crosses the line and violates ethical principles is D. Reputation of study authors are questioned.
Let's really clarify that line. I have to point out that their study is weak, but I cannot point out that they are a bad scientist.
Precisely. The critique must be entirely focused on the data and the methodology.
Got it.
You can state, hey, the conclusions of this paper are limited because the sample size was remarkably small and lacked a control group.
Right.
That is good science. What you cannot do is write, the author clearly doesn't know what they are doing and has a history of sloppy work.
Right. No personal attacks.
Ad hominem attacks have zero place in critical appraisal. You attack the science, never the scientist.
That is a vital distinction. Keep it professional. Keep it focused on the data. All right, we have pulled apart all the individual pieces. Now let's assemble the whole engine.
Let's do it.
Question 12. Choose the correct sequence of the steps of systematically doing literature search from below. Option A, organize the information, identify the lacunae, develop the research questions, synthesize the results.
Okay.
Option B, identify the lacunae, develop the research questions, synthesize the results, organize the information. Option C, develop the research questions, synthesize the results, organize the information, identify the lacunae. Or option D, organize information, synthesize the results, identify the lacunae, develop the research question.
The only logically sound sequence there is D, organize information, synthesize the results, identify the lacunae, develop the research question.
Walk us through why that specific order is completely non-negotiable. Like, why couldn't I develop my research question first?
Well, let's trace the steps. First, you pull down your PDFs. If you don't organize them immediately, you just have a chaotic desktop folder of unreadable file names. You can't synthesize chaos.
Right.
So step 1, organize. Once they are filed properly, step 2 is to read and synthesize the results. Basically, combining them in your mind to see the big picture.
Okay.
Only after you see the entire big picture can you move to step 3, identifying the lacunae. You spot the gap.
The missing piece.
Exactly. And once you finally see the exact shape of that gap, step 4 happens. You develop a precise research question custom built to fill it.
Oh, I see.
If you build your research question first, before you've organized, synthesized, and found the gap, you're almost certainly going to ask a question that has already been answered.
You'd be that researcher in the windowless lab, wasting 5 years on a problem solved in 1998. It all comes full circle.
It really does.
Well, if you are listening to this, take a deep breath. You have officially powered through all 28 available multiple choice questions for Lecture 3.
Congratulations.
Yeah. You now have a conceptual grip on everything from why we do literature reviews to the vital difference between just seeking and precise retrieval.
You understand how PubMed uses me-sh terms to standardize language, how Boolean operators let you perform complex math with words, and how critical appraisal requires you to ruthlessly but ethically evaluate the data you find.
It is a massive amount of information, but when you break it down into these mechanisms, when you understand why PubMed needs a controlled vocabulary or why you have to synthesize before you can find the gap, it stops being just rote memorization.
Right.
It becomes a functional toolkit you can actually use.
Exactly. And before we close out, I want to leave you with a thought experiment based on what we covered today.
Oh, I love these.
We established firmly that query systems in information retrieval are currently user-defined. You are entirely responsible for building the Boolean logic to find what you need.
Right.
But we're living in the age of rapidly evolving AI and large language models.
Yeah.
Will the line between broad information seeking and precise information retrieval begin to blur?
Oh, wow.
Are we approaching a horizon where the database stops waiting for our structured commands and instead predicts what lacunae we're trying to fill? practically defining the query for us.
That is a wild thought. Will the librarian just hand you the exact book you need the moment you walk through the door before you even open your mouth?
Something to ponder as you continue to navigate the literature.
Definitely. We hope this deep dive helps you apply this structured thinking not just to your upcoming exam, but to your entire research career. Stay curious, keep synthesizing, and we'll catch you next time.